Hello and welcome to Can I Retire Now with your hosts Nick Russell and Becky Wagoner. I'm RJ Malik, producer of the podcast. Nick and Becky, let's start by getting to know the both of you and your backgrounds, then give us a preview of what you hope to share and accomplish with Can I Retire Now. Nick, let's start with you.
Sure thing, RJ. So my name is Nick Russell. I'm a financial advisor. I founded and own Sunrise Wealth Advisors based here in Orlando. Um, didn't know I was going to be a financial advisor from the beginning. Went to college for applied mathematics and theoretical physics, actually. Virginia Tech alum, for those of you out there. Uh, then switched over to finance later when I realized I didn't want to do math in a windowless room for the rest of my life. So switched over to finance, took a couple interviews for a financial advisor, and then started with one of the big firms. About 4 years in, left, started my own company, and then it's been about 15 years of that. We started the firm back in '09. So service clients here in the greater Orlando area, but we have clients all over the country. So I'm hoping to be able to provide, a kind of a nice advice from, a professional standpoint to maybe answer some questions and get rid of some myths that are out there around investing, saving, and all of that.
What got you interested in doing this, changing from, the windowless job to this job?
Yeah.
What was the main attraction?
So I have been told I have kind of that analytic mindset of an engineer. And no offense to any of the engineers that I know, who some are clients and great friends. But I have a little more of the expressive personality. So I think it would have been tough for me to sit in a room and not interact with people every day. And this job really allows me to kind of marry them both, right? Like people come to me and I'm able to do all the projections, give them advice. But what I always say, I'm seeing the end product, right? I'm seeing the clients get to retirement, and through retirement, I'm helping their kids get to college. We're going to a wedding later this year for a client of mine who was a baby when I first met her, and now she's getting married. And so I helped her parents, and everything throughout the years. So that to me is really rewarding, being able to see it and not just be crunching numbers all day.
So you can see the job completion and satisfaction that you get from helping a person get from A to B to C to D.
It's very rewarding. Yeah.
Very good. All right, Becky, basically same question. How did you, or give us your role in this?
Hello, I'm Becky, and I am actually married to Nick. So I am attached to this via him, but my background comes from higher education. I worked in a college of business at a university for 15 years. So I worked with a lot of finance professionals, professors and students. And then it was great when I met Nick about 10 years ago, and we've been married a few years. Got to see the business end of all these concepts that I had learned and been around for many, many years. So right now I am a homemaker and a mom, and I really enjoy having discussions with Nick about everything and anything, but including kind of his finance ideas and what's happening in the world, and getting a little bit of a different perspective than one that's purely academic, which I'd had for so long. So,
okay, so you're partners in this project. Nick, what do you see Becky contributing to you and to this project?
Well, look, let's be honest. There's a lot of content out there nowadays with podcasts, social media, and all of that. And even in my industry, I think they now say there's about 300,000 financial advisors out there in the country, and probably just as many that say they're financial advisors or give financial advice, via social media or something that it's not their profession. What I really want to do here is make sure that I'm able to answer questions, but now really let people be kind of a fly on the wall for the actual conversations Becky and I are having at home. So it's not just about, hey, look at me, I'm a professional, this is what I do, but show you kind of how the sausage is made. Like, this is the stuff that we do at home, and we've been married before us, and both divorced and married, I have a stepdaughter, so there's all these kinds of little, I don't want to say issues, but things that come up in life that we've dealt with personally. So it's not about, like Becky said, reading it from a book and says, well, this is the way you should do it. We can say, this is how we're actually doing it. And I don't think that would be possible without Becky.
So you look to her for almost, I would say, a different perspective on how to look at a couple trying to get their financial, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, their financial house in order.
Well, yeah, sure. I'm the CEO of Sunrise Wealth Advisors, but she's definitely the CEO of our house, right? And the COO and the CFO. She's all those positions, and she's coming from. I mean, I first one to tell everybody she has more degrees than I do. I mean, she is academically far more educated than I am, even though she doesn't technically work in this industry, right? She helps me kind of behind the scenes with stuff. She's very informed about this and knows how to handle kind of the day to day. But there's the bridge there between the day to day things, paying the
Sure.
bills, interest rates, finances, loans,
Sure.
to saving for retirement. And yeah, I think it brings in a really cool perspective.
So, Becky, I'm going to address you with this question. Then, how did this concept of you two working together, how did this come about? Because you're not in the same industry.
No, so Nick and I are actually we listen to a lot of podcasts, but we enjoy each other's company, obviously, and we have a lot of good conversations. And a lot of the conversations we have, we often ask ourselves, like, is anyone else talking about this? Like, does anyone else think of it this way, or have they approached it? And we have great friends and family that, we talk with also and talk about it. But the idea behind this was that we could talk to each other and have these conversations and hopefully prompt other people to have these conversations, these important conversations that about finances in life that can be complicated or uncomfortable or awkward. But we always feel better at the end of having them, and so the idea behind this is that we can talk about these things and maybe prompt topics and discussions in your own household with those that matter to you regarding your finances to get in better shape financially.
Okay, that sounds great. And now that we got a little background on both of you, let's talk about your project here. Can I retire now? How did that idea come about, and what do you hope to accomplish with this?
Sure. I'll field it with something that Becky said to me that really sparked kind of the idea for me, was that I think people are afraid of money sometimes, right? Making the wrong decisions or not knowing what they should be doing, and they're afraid to talk about it. Now, I grew up in a very different background than Becky did, not financially, kind of similar, lower income families, but I have a New York, New Jersey, Italian, loud, everything's on the table family. Becky comes from a little more of a Southern, North Georgia, and she grew up in Florida, more conservative family. And we would talk about money a little bit at home. And I don't want to speak for you, kind of speak from your experience, Becky, but I think people are just, unfortunately, uninformed. As much information as there is out there, it's overwhelming. So they're afraid to make mistakes because, and I'm trying to think of how you said this the other day, Becky. You said something about that they get so much information that sometimes they're like, oh, if I'm not doing this, I feel defeated, right? And then they don't even start or get bother with it, or they get all this information and go, I'm not doing this. Oh, I'm a doofus. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and they get defeated again. And some of these concepts we want to talk about and share are, I think, all based around just talking to people about it and saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And not everybody's a financial advisor, sure, but you start to share those ideas. It makes it a lot easier to get the right information and be able to actually accomplish some of the things you want.
Yeah, and Nick's always saying to me, because I sometimes get caught up in a situation and I spiraling about something. And if it has anything to do with money, he's just like, money is not emotional. He's like, so many people think money is an emotional topic. And his number one thing he says to me is like, money is not emotional. Like, it's not. So separate the two. And it's a hard concept and not always successful, but that's why I have Nick.
Well, that's great because it's difficult to keep the emotions out of money when you're paying bills or something comes up that you don't expect. There are situations that are happening, and what's happening to a lot of people my age, and you'll probably see this because you both of you are a little younger than me, but our parents, we have to take care of our parents, and it can get really expensive. And it gets really emotional because you got to, for me, speaking from my point of view, my mom has specific things that she wants, but her health is declining. And we now have to walk a very fine line because she reminds me all the time, I'm your mother,
Yeah.
And I want to respect her with that. But at the same time, I want to take care of her. And so it's so when you said, you take the emotion out, that's a difficult thing. How do you approach that, Nick, then dealing with a situation like that? I know we're going off off topic a little bit, but
yeah. And I think you brought up the other life topic that tends to be very emotional for people, but you're kind of forced to make very practical and pragmatic decisions, which is medical decisions, right? About your health, right? If your health is declining or something happens, you tend to just, be emotional about it. It's your health, it's your well-being. So by saying people are emotional about it, I don't want to at all, make it sound like you shouldn't care about it. There should be a lot of care when it comes to health and money. But what we'll find people do is, and I'll just use retirement as an example, can I retire now? If I'm speaking in front of a group of people and I say, okay, well, when you retire, and you put in your 2 weeks, you retired, now instead of saving money, you're now taking income. How should you invest? And that's just such a broad, kind of obnoxiously broad question. But most people in the room, I mean, most, 4 out of 5, raise their hand and go, very conservative as possible. And that's not the right answer for a lot of people. But the underlying reason they say that is fear. They're worried that if the market goes down, they'll lose money and then they'll run out of money and not be able to either stay retired or live the lifestyle they want. But all of that comes from an emotion, really, like an uninformed way of thinking about that problem. And we'll probably talk about this plenty of times in the future, but there are ways to kind of strip that emotion out of it and do it on a very kind of boring, vanilla, practical way and say, hey, if you set things up like this, you don't have to worry about your income. And as somebody like me that had clients who were retired way back in 2008 during the financial crisis, they never missed an income payment. But there are plenty of people that were planning on retiring in 2008, 2009, 2010 that all of a sudden worked for another 10 years because they were not making informed decisions. They were or they sell low and buy high and all of those
reacting emotionally.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a challenge. And I come home and I tell Becky sometimes, and I am a financial advisor, but I'm also a marriage counselor. I'm also a guidance counselor. I wear a lot of hats, and a lot of it is not the mathy part of it that a lot of people think. It's really about informing people so that they can help them make these non-emotional or just pragmatic decisions about something that obviously has a big, kind of emotional pull on them.
All right, so you're talking about your approach. Let's expand a little bit more because we talked prior to coming on, and you talked about a holistic approach. Yeah. Can you go a little more in depth when you say, okay, when we are working with a client, we're taking a holistic approach? What does that mean?
Sure. So a lot of people still, and there are more and more advisors that do this now, fortunately. Back in the day, 20 years ago, even, you would go to a stockbroker to buy your investments. You go to an insurance agent to buy your insurance products. You go to the bank to get a loan or CD. and they were all very disconnected. So my thought process is, why not be licensed and capable of giving all of the advice on all of those things at once? Because at the end of the day, if somebody wants to refinance their mortgage or take money out of their investments to put a down payment on a house or make another investment, it's going to affect all of these other aspects of their lives, from their retirement planning to taxes to all these things. You talk about insurance. Insurance is probably the least attractive thing to talk about, right? But God forbid something happened to me. I know that Becky and my stepdaughter will be taken care of and be able to continue to live a lifestyle they're accustomed to because of insurance. Yeah, some of the assets we've saved and invested, but at our age, insurance is going to carry the weight of that. So really looking at someone's situation from all of those different areas in a very holistic, kind of comprehensive view, um, makes it a lot easier to make those decisions when, like you said before, things come up. Things always come up. I've had people sit in my office right here and tell me, "No, why would we review our plan every year? Nothing's changed in years." And if I could get them on here right now, I'm thinking of people in particular, they would laugh. They said, "I said that in your office, and 5 or 6 years of working together, something has changed every year." And I'm like, great. But we have a plan and we have a comprehensive view to just make sure we can just, manipulate what we need to make sure that your goals are, you're still on track for your goals.
When do you think people should start looking for financial advice and planning for their future? When I was in my 20s and even into my 30s, I was thinking about my next step in my career,
Yeah.
not retiring. So when would you advise people to really start thinking about retirement or what you're going to do when you end your working career?
Yeah, and it's a awesome question because I have obviously done a financial plan for Becky and and we're in our 40s. It's hard for me to even think about, okay, what exactly does that look like, and what does that exactly mean financially? Um, but you have to be shooting for something, right? If you're shooting from the hip and you're not aiming, it makes it a little tougher. I would say as early as possible. I mean, when you get your first job out of college, I always think about myself, right? My senior year of college, I delivered pizzas, right, to make money. I paid a lot of my bills through college, and I worked at department stores and all kinds of stuff. But I delivered pizzas my senior year, and my claim to fame was I made $5,000 that year, and it paid my rent and all of that stuff. Um, but then most people graduate and they get their first job, and I don't know, let's just say for easy math, they're making $50,000 a year the first year, but somehow they have no money in their pockets. And how did you go from $5,000 last year to 50,000 this year? Like, yeah, maybe you bought a new car, or you have rent's a little more expensive because you don't have a roommate, let's say, like you did in college. But it's not a $45,000 difference. And so starting right at the beginning and creating those good habits will really, really pay their dividends. Now, do you need a comprehensive advisor like me? Maybe not. Maybe you meet with one, you get some good advice, and then you allow yourself to be disciplined and follow some of those beginning stage steps. And then once you kind of build yourself up, yeah, you're starting to look at getting married, buying a house, having kids. I mean, all of those big life events give you opportunities to meet with an advisor to get advice to help you. Yeah, definitely better to be proactive than reactive with that sort of stuff.
Okay, so this is your initial podcast, and you are looking to help people get ready for their retirement and financially. What is something you'd like to, just from the first podcast, what would you like to leave the listeners with?
I think one of the most interesting things that I read recently was an Axios survey from 2023 saying that 1 in 5 Americans actually doesn't think they will ever retire. And the main reason behind that is financial, not because they love their job or whatever, is because they have financial worries. And that's just a staggering figure to me, is that people are just going to, whether or not they want to, they will work forever. And I don't know many people that actually desire to have that outcome. And then along in that survey, they had a whole bunch of interesting facts and figures, but one that stuck out particularly being married to Nick, who's in the industry, but also having my own experience, is that nearly 60% of people have never talked to a financial advisor about it. And so to me, those numbers, they make sense together and they don't, right? Like if we're all worried, if there's a significant number of people that are worried they won't be able to retire and there's a solution out there, they're obviously not making that jump to get there and to figure it out. And I can say, before I met Nick, I mean, I was younger, but I had never talked to a financial advisor, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so I think coming out of this, I think the goal of everything is to not be scared to examine your financial life, to talk about it, and to talk with someone that's an expert in the field, and get rid of those fears or worries, or at least be certain about what your future looks like.
Nick, did you find that survey surprising that it was that high as percentage of people who, don't think they can retire?
So it's funny. I've seen similar surveys, obviously, over the years, and there's always a number in there that always stands out to me. And in this case, it was like the 1 in 5 people. And the problem, actually, as you go deeper into that number, is 1 in 5 people are telling you they don't think they'll ever retire. Potentially more of them don't have enough money or haven't done the right things to retire to the lifestyle that they want. And that's the scarier part to me, is maybe another 20% of people are retiring because they want to retire. But they're going to run out of money, or they're not making the right financial decisions. And I've had that here. I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, I've already retired. I started taking Social Security. I made all these decisions. Am I going to have enough?" I go, "Why didn't you have this conversation with somebody prior to pulling the trigger on all those things?" And like Becky said, I think just having honest conversations about money with each other, like with your people you share financial decisions with, going out and seeking professional help. I think people are nervous that they'll get the answer, "Yeah, you're not on track." But I'd rather find that out ahead of time and be able to course correct and say, "Oh, if I have to save a little extra money every month to make this happen or do X, Y, and Z, I'd rather know now than when I'm 65 and 2 months from retirement and you go, 'Yeah, you don't have enough money. Then what?' Then you don't really have the time to fix it." So, I mean, that's really the goal here, is to make sure that we're hopefully leaving people with something they can take and say, "You know what, let me think about that," or "Let me look into that for myself," or "Let me ask my financial advisor if you have one," or "Let me, find somebody that can maybe answer these questions specific to me."
Fantastic. I think that's a good way to wrap up the first podcast. How can people, if they are interested in speaking with you, Nick, how can they get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is to go to the website, which is easy. It's www.sunrisewealthadvisors.com, Sunrise Wealth Advisors. You could also email me directly, which is my first initial, Russell, Russell, at sunrisewealthadvisors.com.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nick and Becky. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to our next podcast and getting more information and getting people ready for their golden years and making sure that it is something that is not going to be as stressful as it can be. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, RJ.
Thank you.